Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome to the session Mobility Model Shift. My name is Hrvoje Gold, and I am a retired professor of Informatics and Intelligent Transportation System at the Faculty of Transport and Traffic Sciences, University of Zagreb. I have honor to moderate this session, and at the beginning I will say a few facts about the main theme of this session. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development of United Nations and its Sustainable Development Goals fully reflect the important supporting role of transport in achieving global sustainable development. Building sustainable transport system that is safe, convenient, efficient, green, economical, inclusive, and resilient is a major move towards high-quality economic and social developments. Comfort, practicality, speed, individual freedom, flexibility, and social status are well-known attractive factors of private cars. But today, we are facing a huge burden of negative side effects of using private cars. Private cars are a major polluter in the transport system. Thus, there is a time for concrete measures to build a better future. I have the honor to announce our invited speaker, Professor Borna Abramović, who will give the introductory talk. Borna is a professor and head of chair for railway transport management at the Faculty of Transport and Traffic Sciences at the University of Zagreb. His area of interest are railway transport, integrated passenger transport systems, transport forecast, transport demand, and game theory. Well, Borna, please take the floor.
Thank you, Professor Gold. Hello, everyone. So today I have quite a challenging task. So I have last session, and I have session after the lunch. So I hope so that you will not go to sleep. Like Professor Gold said, my name is Borna Abramović. I am coming from University of Zagreb, Faculty of Transport and Traffic Sciences, and also I am member of Croatian Academy of Engineers, Department of Transport. So for today invited lecture, I make a short content. So the first part of the lecture will be introduction. The second part, we will talk about European Green Deal. Then we will talk about some interesting statistics. Then we will talk about car. The car is mighty or almighty. Then we will ask ourselves, can we change this paradigm that car is mighty? And I will not have classical conclusion, rather something instead of the conclusion. So we can start. For introduction, I prepare some interesting words. So, for example, green policy. Is here anyone that do not heard about green policy? You are all familiar with this word, green policy. Then the second word is decarbonization. Also, everyone knows this word? Yes, excellent. The third word is digitalization. Very modern word. Okay, digital. Everything is digital. The fourth word is resistance. So, how resist we are, for example, when we look back at the COVID. And the last but not the least, sustainability. All these words are so-called buzzwords. I think that each of us has our own definition what mean each of these words. And we can debate, I think, for a few days what of this each word significant to each of us. At the end of the day, we need to make some compromise and go in the right direction. So, at the European level, European Union level, they make so-called a European Green Deal. The idea of European Union plan is turning to the best climate neutral continent. So it's very advanced thought. So that the Europe will be the first climate neutral continent. So what is idea behind the European Green Deal? It will be transform European Union into modern, resource efficient, and competitive economy. This is also three buzzwords. Okay, modern, we are all modern. You know, we are here, so we need to be modern. Resource efficient, so more for less or less for more. We can debate about that. And competitive. So this is very important. We need to be competitive. So what the European Green Deal says, no net emission from greenhouse gases by 2050. So this is like the first major goal. So it's quite near. So maybe in 25 years, we need to achieve this goal. It is possible, we shall see. Probably not, but we can strive to do it. The second thing is economic growth decoupled from resource use. So how we can have economic growth that we don't use so much resources. So when we speak with economics, they will tell you that this is a little bit crazy. Okay, so you need to have resources to make something. So this is like a very philosophical question, how we can do economic growth that we decoupled from the resource use. And the third, and very important for all of us, that no person and no place left behind. So it's mean that this European Green Deal will deal with all people, not only in urban area, not only in the richest country, but also in rural area and in poorest country of the Europe. So this is very important because this last goal has like this social influence. So everyone is invited to do something about European Green Deal. And of course, when we talk about strategies, when we talk about plans, I think the very important issue is there money? Who will pay for that? Okay, so we're living in capitalism, so everything you need to pay. And the question is how much money we have for these goals. So when you read the official documents of European Union, they will start you like this. 1/3 of 1.8 trillion euros will be invested to European Green Deal. This is very marketing approach. You know, 1/3 of 1.8 millions. We are here all engineers, so for us 1/3 it's not so problematic, okay? But imagine for people, they will hear only 1.8 million. They will not hear 1/3. It's complicated, okay? But 1/3, it's 0.6. So it's not so much money, okay? So they said that they will investment for this new program called Next Generation EU for 7-year budget planning. So from this year to 2030, and we will spend 0.6 trillion euros for achieving these 3 goals that I present you in a slide. So what are the benefits of European Green Deal? There is a list of the benefits. So we start with the first topic, fresh air, clean water, healthy soil, and biodiversity. This is very important for all of us, not only for transport sector. Renovated energy efficient buildings. This is very hot topic. How much energy buildings need to keep it running. Third things, healthy and affordable food. You can see now in last maybe 6 months, the food is quite expensive. So the prices of the food is rising quite high. Third, very important for transport session, more public transport. I will tackle this issue later, but this is very important when we talk about European Green Deal, that we need more public transport. The next one is cleaner energy and cutting edge clean technological innovation. So we need to think about it, how to produce clean energy, how we can use some energy to be clean. So it's not so easy task. The second thing, it's longer lasting products that can be repaired, recycled, and reused. This is very hot topic at the Brussels level. So you know that some companies have so-called like memory effect in their equipment. So after 3, 5, or 6, 7 years, the equipment broke down, but not because the equipment is bad or something go wrong, but it's like life cycle of this equipment. So the European Union want that we have lasting product that can be repaired. Next thing is future-proof jobs and skills training for the transition. This is very important. For example, I am coming from University of Zagreb, and it's a very reasonable question. What we are teaching our students today that can be done in 5 years period for now. So we are learning them new technology, or we are recycling some old PowerPoint slides. So for people that are working at university level, it's very important that they introduce new topics, new things, new idea in current curriculum to prepare students for the new challenges in the future. And last but not the least, global competitive and resistant industry. So we know that Europe is one of the continents, very old continent, we can say like old lady, and we need to produce more competitive and resistant industry. Okay, so the next topic, like I said, will be some interesting statistics. I like to say that behind every number there is a story. So each of slide with a statistic, you can speak maybe 1 day, half a day, depending on how much numbers you have on the slide. So I will start with the first slide. It's final energy consumption in EU 27 by sectors. So on the left side, so here, you can see very interesting graph that follow from 1990s to 2021 energy consumption of different sectors. The sectors, according to statistics, are industry, transport, household and services, and agriculture. And what we can see on this slide, we can see that European industry is dropping down by consumption of energy. We can make two conclusions. The first conclusion, we don't have any more industry. And the second conclusion, the industry is much more efficient. Probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. Okay. And then what we can see here in transport industry, we can see that the transport industry use more and more energy. So it means that we have more and more transport on roads, railway, inland waterways, maritime transport, and so on. And then we can see the household and agriculture is almost stable. So there is no big fluctuation in these two sectors. And when we look at the last year, 2021, we can see that the transport has 29.2% of whole energy consumption at EU level. That is huge amount of energy consumption. Okay, imagine that the whole household, so all the people, spending 42%, and the transport almost 30%. So this is critical. Okay, we consume quite a lot energy in transport sector. Okay, the next graph, greenhouse gas emissions by the sector. So according to statistics, there is some different sectors. So the first sector is energy industry. The second one is manufacturing and construction. The third one is transport. The fourth one is industrial processes and product use. The next one is agriculture, and then the waste, and then there is other. So it's mean by the percent, it's not so high when you look at each of the sector inside of the other. So I combine all the others together. So what we can see here, we can see that transport has 24.1% of all greenhouse gas emission in European Union. And when we look at other things, for example, energy industry has the less. So this is also interesting. Okay, so they produce the energy and they don't produce so much emissions. Okay, so we need to ask ourselves where the transport is going. So where we are going with the transport, because again, this number is quite high. Okay, the next one is the same topic, but dividing by the modes. So what modes we have? We have civil aviation, road transport, railways, navigation, it means that it's maritime transport and inland waterways. Okay, together we call that navigation, and then all others modes of transport. Here, it's very interesting fact, when you look at carefully, that the road has the highest amount. This we all know, of course. The road, there are combustion engines, so it's very like natural story that we have some issue with the road. So then we have navigation, and then we have civil aviation. So it's interesting that railway it's very low on this scale when we look greenhouse emissions by the modes. Okay, next slide, it's about CO2 emissions by the sector. This is the same sector like with greenhouse gas emissions. And we can see here, for example, the transport, it's almost the same percentage, so 29.2%. Again, you can see when you look at others sectors that the most producer of CO2 emission at European level, it's again transport. Okay, so we are doing something wrong, so it's not good. When we look carefully by the modes, again, the same 5 modes like previous slides, we can see again that we have some problems or challenges with the road transport. So the majority of CO2 emission, 2/3, it's coming from CO2 emissions. And then we have so-called land-based passenger transport in European Union. So on this graph, I also took statistic from 2000 to 2020, and look what is the modal share of land use transport. And what we can see here, that the road transport is always growing a little bit. Okay, and other transport are shrinking or stay stable. What that means? It means that each of the strategy that we produce in last 30 years was not good. So in each strategy, we tell that we will use more railway, we will use more inner waterways, we will use less roads. But when you look at the statistics, this is all wrong. So all strategy that we write in last 30 years are like very bad strategies. So there was quite huge amount of the papers, huge amount of ideas, but behind these ideas there is no some concrete goals, what we can do to improve overall modal split of land use transport in Europe. So with this slide, I will conclude this statistical part so that we have something to talk about in our panel. And I will start with the new part of presentation. This is the car is mighty. So for me, the first question is, can we live without a car? So this is the question. And I can answer you immediately, yes. And I know that 90% of you will say no. So I think it's possible. And for example, I don't have a car. No, my family have a car. So I travel whole world without a car. It's possible. Sometimes it's very challenging. We can say problematic also, okay, problematic. But I've done it, okay. For example, I travel with the train from Zagreb to Lisboa in Portugal. It's around 36 hours. I traveled from Zagreb to Kiev. It's also around 36 hours. Okay, I traveled from Zagreb to Stockholm. It's around 28 hours. So it's possible. It's not impossible. Okay. So the right question for all of us, how we can decrease usage of the car. This is, I think, the good question. But on other hand, we must be pragmatic. What is idea behind owning the private car? The first, when you ask people why you have a car, they will answer you comfort. I'm very comfortable. When I use the car, I'm excellent. I'm feeling super. So I'm alone in my car. Okay. The second thing, they said it's very practical. You know, I need to go to the shopping. And that's why I need a car, because I cannot go to the big shopping mall without the car. So for example, on my case, I don't have a car, so I don't go to the shopping malls, okay? So bad for the economy, okay? But in the COVID, they invented home delivery. So I order my delivery at my home. So I don't go to the shopping, I only click on the internet, and they give me in 2 to 3 days at my doorsteps all things that I order. Okay, so it's car practical? Probably yes, but it's necessary? Probably no. The next thing is speed. People always said, I will be speedy when I have a car. Okay, and this speed, this is for me very questionable. For example, I will tell you a story in Germany. So I very often travel to Germany, and my regular travel line is between Munich and Berlin. So this is like the biggest and the third largest city in Germany. And with the train, you need 3 hours and 50 minutes. 3 hours, 50 minutes. It costs first class 69 euro. When you want to drive a car from Munich to Berlin, this is like minimum 6 hours when there is no congestion. You know, German word for congestion is Stau. So it's very famous word in Germany. So in ideal case, you will need 6 hours. So the speed is not the answer. Okay. The next thing, it's individual freedom. This is very important. This is very, very important. So people that use car always said, I have a freedom. I'm free man. How much you pay for your maintenance? Okay, so you are not free. Okay, and very important thing is flexibility. So cars are very flexible. So I can park anywhere, you know. I can come to this hotel and park in front of the hotel and enter the hotel. Not the truth. Okay, it's not possible. So flexibility, it's a little bit challenge also. It's their flexibility. And very, very important things that we engineers sometimes like do not look at very honestly is social status. Majority of people have a car because of the social status. Okay, this is very important. I have BMW, I have a Mercedes, I have Audi. So this is a social status. This is very important for the people, that they have social status. For example, my social status is I go with the tram. You know, it costs 2 million euro, one tram. So is that social status? Probably not, you know. So, and another thing that I do, I make one like experiment. So on 26th of September 2023, I make a screenshot of Google Map, city of Zagreb. You can see here is the railway station. So our hotel is like, I think here somewhere. Okay. And when you look good at this map, it's like 11:30. Majority of roads are red. So it's congestion. It's off-peak hour in Zagreb. Off-peak hour, the roads are congested. So we can see that all of these ideas fell down with looking at one Google screenshot. Okay, so we need to think about it, where we are going. So when we talk about utilization of private car, what is interesting at European Union level? We have almost 250 million cars on the road. So this is huge number of the cars. Okay. Another thing, on average, EU cars are 12 years old. So it's quite old-fashioned cars. Okay, it's not so new cars. So the average of the cars in European Union is low. Interesting that battery electric and plug-in hybrid make only 1.5% of total EU car fleet. So we can say this is like statistical error. Okay, when you look at the whole picture, this is some kind of statistical error. Then motorization rates, it's huge. 567 cars per 1,000 people. This is huge. It means that each of us, second, when you look at left, has own car. You look at right, he has own car. Okay, so we are quite rich. And this is very interesting. On average, cars done only 12,000 kilometers per year. 12,000 kilometers. Imagine that 1 kilometer costs you €1. It means that you spend 12,000 euro per year only to drive the car with no gas, maintenance, and so on. So this is like pragmatic approach. And for me, that was very interesting fact that average distance in the cities around European Union, it's around 5 kilometers with the car. 5 kilometers, okay. When I was younger, I run. So for 5 kilometers, I need 70 minutes. Okay, now I'm a little bit older, so I need maybe 25 minutes. Okay, so but imagine you buy a car for 100,000 euro that you drove on average 5 kilometers. Okay, so are we ready for new normal? I like to make slides with cartoons of Andy Singer. Andy Singer is American. He lives in New Hampshire, so north part of the New York, on the north part, east part of America, northern part of New York, and he's quite activist against the car in America. Imagine, he's an enemy of the government. Okay, he's the #1 when the government has issue with the car policy. And he has quite excellent cartoons. So he wrote these cartoons maybe 30 years ago, and he said, this is the myth, and this is reality. And when we look at streets in every European city, exactly, this is the reality. This first graphic, we can see only in commercials. We cannot see this graphic in real life. Maybe on some very rural outskirt road somewhere in European Alps or something like that. Okay, and now the question is, can we change a paradigm? So let's make a change. All changes are beginning with us, each of us. So when we want to change something, first we need to change ourselves, and then maybe we can ask others to change. So this is the most difficult part, you know, how to make change. So what is today's buzzword for changing our paradigm? It's mobility. You know this word, mobility. It's very modern. Everything is mobile, okay? Everything is mobility. So what means mobility? Mobility means moving. Every human has a force inside to move. We want to move, to go somewhere, to the toilet, to the kitchen, to the garden, to the school, to the work. So we are moving ourselves quite a lot. So what we must to move? We need to move people. Very often we move trains and buses. Okay, when you look at the public transport in your cities, you will see quite often empty trains and empty buses. This is wrong. We need to move people. The second thing, we need to move everywhere. Do not be concentrated only to urban areas. We need to move ourselves to the rural areas also. So we need to move everywhere where the people are living. The next thing, it's always. It's mean whole day services. When you have, for example, bus one time in the morning and one time in afternoon, it means that you don't have public transport. You have some bus that is scheduled 2 times per day. This is quite bad service. So we need to make always to run the services. And very important topic, it's building a sustainable system. So it's like philosophical, but what that mean? It means that we need to build a system for the people that moves, not vice versa. We don't need the system for the vehicles, for infrastructure, but we need system for the people. So how we can say what is tomorrow mobility. We can say that this is integrated public passenger transport system. And on this graph, I try to catch all parts. So you see here, all parts that we need to build to say to our people, to our citizens, that we are making better future for them. Okay, so for example, here we have car sharing, we have ride sharing, we have smart parking, we have commuting, we have some personal travel assistance tools, we have railway, we have buses, we have bicycles, we have connected vehicles, we have autonomous vehicles. So all of this micro solution need to be incorporated in one big system, and this one big system served to the people. So this is like a puzzle, you know, this picture here, we can say it's a puzzle, and each of us is doing one puzzle. But when we combine all the puzzles together, we get the whole picture, we get the future mobility. And now another look, how the stakeholders see the story. Again, I have a cartoon from Andy Singer. So when we look at investments for roads, we say that this is a public investment. So it's very positive. It's huge positive. But when we see building a new tram, railway line, light rail system, metro, or something like that, usually people say wasteful subsidies. Okay, so we are now like on the border. What do we want to change? We want to change the titles of these two graphics. So this is wasteful subsidies, and this is public investment. It will need time. Probably I will go to the pension, and people still will talk about this issue. Okay, so it's not so modern issue. And instead of the conclusion, I like to quote one American guy, Anthony Fox. He said following things: the reality about transportation is the future oriented. If we're planning for what we have, we are behind the curve. What he wants to say to us: when we reuse current models, current opinion, current knowledge, we are late. Okay, we need to think at least 5 to 10 years in front of us to see what can happen and what we can do that this is possible. Nowadays, we are here in Zagreb, capital of Croatia, and this hotel, it's quite new. It's only 25 years old hotel, but it's in neighborhood that it's built in the beginning of the 20th century. And you can look the roads around this hotel. Imagine 120 years ago, size of the roads that they built here. There was a visionaries. Okay, imagine in that period of time, there was no cars in Zagreb. Okay, zero. But they built quite nice roads. So that is a vision. We need to see what can happen in the future to make future possible. We need to invent the future. Future will come always, but it's maybe better that we invented the future. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Borna. Now I will invite our panelists to take their positions. And we don't have here the presentation, but I hope that our panels will be very interesting in their comments and discussions. So I like at first to introduce all of them, and then we start the discussion. Well, I will start with the ladies. Professor Edna Mrnjavac is a full professor at the Faculty of Tourism and Hospitality Management in Opatija. That's near the University of Rijeka, that's on the coast. Her research interests include traffic in tourism, traffic management in tourism destinations, and supply chain management in tourism, with particular emphasis on sustainability and mobility of traffic and tourism. Croatia is a touristic land, and we have we are very interested to realize the transport system which is acceptable, and all these facts that Borna said about, especially for the strangers to come to this beautiful land. Professor Elmar Fürst, he's associate professor at the Institute for Transport and Logistics Management at Vienna University, Austria. He has been involved in various international and national projects on sustainability in the domain of transport, and particularly in accessible mobility and transport. Furthermore, he is a chairman of the Hilfsgemeinschaft, the Austrian association supporting the blind and visually impaired, and chairman and member of number of scientific and standardization committees. Professor Adam Török is a full professor at the Budapest University of Technology and Economics. He holds Master of Science in Transport Engineering and Financing Engineering and PhD in Transport Sciences and Business and Management. He earned the Doctorate of Hungarian Academy of Sciences. He is an active, Doctor of Hungarian Academy of Sciences. He is an active member of the Transport Scientific Association and Hungarian Logistic Association. Professor Marko Ševrović is Associate Professor at the Faculty of Transport Traffic Sciences, University of Zagreb, where he holds the position of Head Department for Transport Planning. He has more than 20 years of experience working on different transport planning, road infrastructure design, and road safety, EuroRAP, IRAP projects in Croatia and abroad. As well, he participated in EU-funded projects related to road infrastructure safety, currently Horizon Project, FEBE, and Elaborator. Well, that's... Okay, now we are ready for discussion. Well, I think that Borna's presentation were a little bit maybe controversial for someone, but it's very inspirative and challenging. So I think at first that each of you make a little comment about Borna's thinking and his expression of freedom of be by themselves. So where we start, maybe Elmar, you can try it, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm very glad to be here and to have the opportunity to discuss with you and to be invited to this distinguished event. Borna, I listened to your discussion with your friends, and so I thought it would be fine, just for the sake of the discussion, to take a little bit a controversial point of view, but at the end, eventually, we will see that we maybe come to the same conclusions. Yeah, so maybe this is interesting. I thought because I've noticed during the last maybe years that I don't say that you do this, but I think that in many disciplines of science, discussion has become rather ideologic instead of controversial and fruitful. And I think that is something we should avoid, and that is why I'm very happy to be able to speak openly here and just for fun take the opposite role, so to say, a little bit. You said we have huge amounts of transport. Yes, that is true, but I say we need some transport. We can have some reductions, that's clear, and we should omit some transports which are useless or which are not necessary or which are not efficient. But on the other hand, if we had no transport at all, we have a specialized economy and globalized economy, we wanted to have this. We joined the EU to have free flows of goods and people and so on. So the freedom was a very big thing, and also the big markets, the integrated markets. So this must have had a value for those people who decided that we should have a union and not segregated countries, which, so to say, work on a standalone basis. Yeah, and so what is the right amount of transport? That is, of course, what we have to find out, because if there is no transport at all, everyone could sit on his own tree maybe, if there are enough trees. That is a question. We should plant more trees, that is for sure, because then also the emissions would be, so we would have more oxygen instead of CO2. Would be a good idea to plant more trees, so that is something we can at the moment agree upon. I was in Poland some weeks ago at the Eurotrans conference, and I heard somebody say, I do not say who it was, yeah, because he said the European Green Deal is something like a declaration of war against the competitiveness of Europe. And we should also take care about these opinions, take this into consideration, because what does it mean if we restrict ourselves, that we don't want to produce any more combustion engines and so on, and that we force people to drive electric cars, that this can be, of course, a productivity disadvantage against other parts of the world, and we should have this in mind. And I always take care when somebody says something has no alternatives. I think we always have alternatives, and at any point in time. So it's definite. I was always a person who was against environmental friendliness to avoid waste and so on. I never understand why people can put their waste in the forest, or why we have to pollute so much for useless things and so on. But we have filters, we have maybe technologies, we have advancements in that respect, so that we can restrict ourselves, and I'm sure in some respect we should also do that. But it's always the question, what is the right amount? Can we live without a car? Yes, of course we can, but is it necessary to do it? And I think that the car has some alternatives, as well as the lorry for freight transport. There must be a reason why all the shipments go by on the road and not by on the train. Yeah. Why does the road has so huge amounts of parts and volumes, transport volumes? Why is that the case? Obviously, it's maybe cheaper, it's more efficient, it's faster, whatever. Yeah, nobody hinders the rail companies to be to offer something better. Yeah. I made a study. I was working for Statistics Austria some years ago, and I found out that 80%. This is true for Austrian statistics some years ago, but I still believe that this hasn't changed hugely. At that time, some years ago, 80% of the transport volume transported on the road was transported for less than 80 kilometers. So I don't think that we have a big chance to shift this on rail, but what we have a chance to make lorries environmental friendly, and we have a chance to have better fuels available to reduce emissions, and maybe to have better technologies in this respect. I think there is this freedom of choice. You have mentioned that, and I think this is very important. But the actual choice is a function of what is offered. And if the public transport offered is for instance, has high service levels, and if it's excellent and also it's reliable, and I also came here by train, of course, yeah, because I could have taken the car also, but I thought that the train is better and so forth. But I had 2 interruptions which were unforeseeable, and I had the fear that I won't get my connection in Villach, and if I had missed that, I would not be here. Yeah? So that is the problem. Yeah? And for instance, if we look at the German railways at the moment, which is a catastrophe, they don't have the infrastructure, they lag behind. And even if they invest millions and billions of euros, they will, it will take some time. So I think the mixture will be the outcome, and that is maybe then what we can agree upon. I think that the future mobility will pretty much look like what you presented on your last slide. Yeah. So I believe this too. And I think that, for instance, electric mobility will be a part of it, but it will not solve the entire problem. There are the questions: where do we get the resources from? Don't raise the point where and by whom the rare earths are extracted. We have all these things, and the problems of safety when for instance, we had this dreadful bus accident in Venice, and at the moment the thing started to burn. Yeah, this would maybe not have happened if this was a diesel bus. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not an expert here. Better experts in the room probably, but I think we have to really take this into consideration, and also the fear about this. And yeah. There is another alternative, you mentioned it as well. This is walking and cycling, and I'm pretty much in favor of that, but not everybody can walk and cycle. So there are, and that is my other, so to say, if I put on my other hat, as representative of people with disabilities. Many people with disabilities, they cannot do this, but if we have consider, for instance, shared spaces or something, and there's really a question of culture. I think if we look to Holland or to Denmark, there is a better cycling culture, like for instance in Austria. If you go through the Marie-Hilfer-Straße, which is a big shopping street in Vienna, and a shared space, then you can fear of your life, yeah, because the cyclists, some drive by 10 centimeters before your nose, yeah, and that is very, very dangerous. So we need to also have a cultural shift in this respect. But in the end, I believe that we will, in fact, have, and so that is the consensus I would like to end with. We will have some sort of integrated transport system, like it was presented. I would have pretty much made the same slide. So that is a good point for the end. Thank you very much.
I come from Faculty of Tourism and Hospitality Management at the University of Rijeka, but I'm of course a traffic engineer, so my field of interest is a concept of traffic and tourism. I agree with the majority of Borna's ideas and arguments. And I will say once more what Borna pointed out, that mobility is about people. So we have had huge strategies looking in the future and so on, but always related to infrastructure, building huge investments, and so on and so on. And many times we just left some older infrastructure somewhere behind where the new infrastructure was built. So one of the many an important element of mobility and mobility concept is to use the existing infrastructure as much as possible. This is very important from the tourism point of view, because we know that all over the Europe some old railways, which Borna and I like so very, very much, because I also like railways very much. For example, there is a huge potential still in European Union, but also, of course, in Croatia. For example, to use all the railways, to use some other infrastructure as also as a tourism attraction. I have read several years ago, I don't remember now the document which was made by some of the part of the European Union, which said that the main role of traffic is to secure higher quality of life of all inhabitants of European Union. Borna said it means people living in urban areas, but also people living in rural areas. I would like to add that traffic is also very important for all tourism destinations, because it enables visitors and tourists to enjoy all the elements, all the services, all the offer that a destination is able to supply, to offer to the visitors. So, generally speaking, about the role of traffic and, of course, of mobility in tourism, we know that there are some fields of connection. It is, at the first place, how emittive market, the places where tourists live, is connected to the destination. So the connection, traffic connection between emittive market and the destination. Then it is a question of how traffic is organized on the field of destination. This is very important because when organizing mobility in the field of tourism destination, we have always to bear in mind how tourists arrive from their homes, from the surrounding countries to the very tourism destination. And then there's also traffic which acts as an attraction in the tourism destination. There is a question of supply, how to supply a tourism destination, and so on and so on. Referring to the figures that Borna pointed out, I will add just little something about the relationship between traffic and tourism. So, when looking at the tourism flows in European Union, the majority is performed by road traffic. So 49% is performed by road traffic, 43% of which by personal cars. So it's something that is very, very similar or just on the same line as your general data, Borna. Going on, plane 41%, train 5%, ship 3%. As we are, of course, interested in our situation in Croatia, we have even worse modal split, because 79% of tourists arriving to our country uses road traffic, 60% of which personal car. So if we just bear in mind the data from earlier, we know that we have a big problem in our tourism and in relationship between traffic and tourism. Then plane 20%, ship 1%. I'm so very sorry for you, Borna, and for me, but official statistic is not speaking about any railway traffic in tourists coming from some other countries to Croatia. Although we know that some tourists from Czech Republic and also I hope from some other European countries also come to Croatia by railways. I will just get some other remarks, then maybe later on we can discuss something. In our tourism destinations, all the research that is done about traffic situation, satisfaction of tourists coming to our destinations, and so on and so on, as well as what local authority and tourism stakeholders think about the relationship between tourists and traffic. They all speak about lack of parking places. And I will put a question. Is there really a possibility to produce such amount of parking places if 80% of tourists, thinking about Croatia, come by road and the majority of them use personal cars? So it is, of course, not possible. There is another problem which I think that we do not understand to the full extent when we speak about the relationship between tourism and traffic, and that is the fact that all those tourists that come to European Union by plane, by ship, and by railways, in the end, when they come to the destination, they mainly use a car. So just to finish this my short introduction, yes, I agree with you, Borna, that mobility concept is a puzzle. So the only solution is a puzzle of many elements, of many different kinds of traffic solutions, green solutions, smart solutions. As my colleague previously said, we have never to forget pedestrian traffic, cycling traffic, which is very important from the health point of view, usage of space, because when we speak about the mobility concept, it is not only a question of how transport is polluting the environment, it is also a huge eater of space everywhere, and that is something that we have bear in mind. So it is important to think always, as I mentioned, about the pedestrian traffic, cycling traffic, because it is good from many aspects. And I should say that people generally are aware about the problem with environment pollution, sustainability, and so on. And at the end, I think that they are willing to some extent to change their habits. I don't agree with you, Borna, that it is possible to live without a car. Looking from the point of view of tourists, I think that we really have to make a huge effort to put on a table all the possible solutions, create that puzzle we have spoken earlier, and to enable to limit the usage of car as much as possible. So it's a question of a source of energy use in the car and so on, but for the moment, I think it is enough for the introduction. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank for the organizers to invite me here as a panelist. And then thank you very much, Professor Gold, for the introduction, and congratulations, Borna, for the presentation. First of all, I would like to come back to your very last slide. I think that, as you mentioned in Zagreb 100 years ago, when they designed these magnificent streets, they were very much lucky. They could have very good views in the future. Meanwhile, there were decades when nothing has changed. Meanwhile, nowadays we have a very rapidly changing economic environment, a lot of new inventions, and I don't know anyone who would be able to foresee what is in the future in 5 or 10 years period. Meanwhile, if you consider that 150 years ago, 200 years ago, there were people who could imagine a couple of decades or 100 years in the future. So it's a very tough problem. If you would consider how the texture of a city can change with the autonomous mobility or with the other type of micromobility usage, then it's very hard to make a long-term forecast on demand. On the other hand, I would also draw your attention and come back with the previous panelists that in terms of mobility, I don't think that the mobility or transportation itself can be neglected. Because if we consider that the raw materials or the people in space as inequally distributed, that means that somehow if we would like to produce something or consume some goods or services, then we have to have transportation until somebody invites teleportation for sure. And the third thing that I would like to add to your presentation, that if we're starting to consider that in these, I would say, trips, somehow we would be able to neglect or even discuss or reveal the social revenue and the social cost of one trip, and also considering the private revenue and private cost, then in one trip you would have the, I would say, we could measure the, if it have a social benefit or a private benefit of one trip. And in case we have a social benefit and a private benefit, then it can be supported, the trip, by the society. If the trip would have, I would say, only private benefit, but it's not gaining any revenue for the society, then it should be somehow penalized, for example, with taxation or pricing regimes, or technological, or changing the legal background. And of course, we can say with the same, if we have, unfortunately, private cost or social cost in some trips, that is also could be a huge problem. So on the other hand, we also need to say that what you mentioned, and I'm very good that you have showed us these figures in statistics, that unfortunately nowadays in Europe, the internal combustion engines are very dominating. That means that we are burning fossil fuels, and from my point of view, technological point of view, that at the moment we don't have alternative solutions that could change this huge amount of number of vehicles in a very short term. Of course, if you see the researches nowadays, then there is hydrogen or electricity. But there is a lot of questions that arises. Who is going to produce the electricity? Who is going to produce the battery? Is it going to be green hydrogen? So a lot of, and what is, at the moment we can say that the power density is still the largest of the fossil fuels, so are very questioning of these technologies in the current format nowadays. And again, would come back that I don't know what is going to be in the next 50, 25 or 30 years. It's a huge question to elaborate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last, I hope not least, for the opening. Yeah, since my background is purely transport and transport planning, and I've been working in this field for basically whole of my professional career with links to road safety. I want to maybe come back to some of the basics that Borna raised. in the equation, and that's mobility. And I always, first thing I talk to my students is, why do we have mobility? Big question. Why do we have transport? Why do we have traffic? And if you think about it in depth, you actually can come to 5 reasons why people travel. It's either work, it's either free time, it's education, health, and what's the 5th? What do you think? Shopping. These are 5 main things that people travel. Yes, we need mobility to get our needs in these all 5 fields. If we can meet those needs, we are free. So that's the key. My answer would be, if you live in London, if you live in Brussels, if you live in Amsterdam, if you live in Copenhagen, it's absolutely okay to live without a car, and you can live without a car. But if you live in Rijeka, if you live in Opatija, or if you live on an island in Croatia, it's impossible. You can't have all of those 5 needs met without a car. And that's the key problem. Also, one other aspect, which I always, I've been writing down some of those strategies that Borna was saying, especially regarding the road safety, but also the transport planning strategies, SUMPs, sustainable urban mobility plans, as you know them. And I always ask myself the question, what would make me change the way I do my travels? So if I travel from my home to my university, which is a 5-kilometer trip, with my car that I own, and I do around 40 to 50,000 kilometers a year, and I do for work only 5% of this. So the cost of owning a car is not because of the work, it's because of everything else. And if it takes me 17 minutes in a rush hour in Zagreb to get from my door to my door at the university, and it takes me 45 minutes with the fastest public transport option, public transport is not an option for me. Because it takes up almost 1 hour a day of my time. And my most precious value that I currently have, besides my health, is my time. And if, on the other hand, public transport was as good that it took a little bit longer, but I could, for example, do my emails in the tram, which I can't in Zagreb, because the public transport is packed, is hot, it's cold, it's windy, it's not on time. There is no option that it can make me move and change my mode. On the other hand, what if somebody says you cannot park your car anywhere near the university, and you would have to walk, or I have to pay 100 euros per day? Let's say I'm now being unrealistic, but these are the options that we have. The cost function. The cost function is what we all calculate in the back of our heads. Nobody thinks about it, but as humans, we calculate it. As transport engineers, we have to understand it. I am having this cost function in my head. In road safety, we call it the willingness to pay. How much you are willing to pay to save your life. If I give you an option to travel from point A to B with a ticket that is a plane ticket that is 500 euros cheaper, but it flies across Ukraine, would you take this one? But if it's 5,000 euros cheaper, if it's 10,000 euros cheaper, that's the willingness to pay. Would you, if you have a gas heater at home, how much would you pay for a device that would alert you if there is a CO concentration that is too high? In a low-income country, nobody has it. In a high-income country, everybody has it, because the change of the willingness to pay. It's the same with the time. If I'm a university professor, I'm willing to pay more for my time. If I am a student, I'm willing to pay less. And this is the cost function that we are all calculating in our head. So I would say, basically, the answer is quite simple. If you want to change the mode of transport, think about the cost function and how you can interfere it. And there is always, like in economy, I guess people who are economists can say about it, it's supply and demand. There are always 2 sides that you can change. Thanks.
Thank you for your answers, or your comments, better to say. Maybe some conclusion that we cannot be with the car for a longer time, I think. But maybe there is a change of behavior. As someone here in some former presentation said, and I heard that maybe 20 years ago in one conference when It was also mentioned in some slides, the Mercedes. They made the plans about the cars in the future, and they said that the younger people don't want to have the ownership. They don't want to be responsive. So it's easier for them, especially now when the technology give the opportunity to do that, just to share the car. And I don't know, maybe this one, there will be less cars, of course, because we can share it. And maybe this is one of shift. I don't know. Maybe naive thinking. Okay. Now, maybe the thing that Borna mentioned and we don't discuss here is this integrated transport. We said that the cars are mostly involved in all this transportation system, but what you can say about the integrated transport, maybe, Borna? You are.
Okay, thank you for your question. So when we speak about integrated public transport system, this is like very old idea, you know. It was invented in Germany, of course, you know, they are a technical nation. So in '96 in Hamburg, they invented integrated public transport system. What was the problem that these days in Hamburg? They have different operators of tram line, railway line, light rail line, buses, and some ships also. You know that the Hamburg is a harbor. And it was very complicated to use the system. And one guy, very smart engineer, said, okay, we will make integration of all modes transport. And we need to do three things. Always we need to do three things. The first thing is that we have one timetable. So the persons that want to use the system need to look origin point and destination point. And they can travel quite easy with one timetable through the system. The second thing, for people, very important thing, that they use only one ticket. So when I enter origin station, I don't need to think about the tariff policy of each of the company. So I only need to know how much I need to pay from A to B, so origin to destination. And the third thing that it's very, very important, especially in today's life, it's information. Passenger need to have information on time. So pre-trip, during the trip, and after the trip. So this is like three pillars for good integrated public transport system. So we need to have one timetable, one ticket, and one information system. So I think technically looking, today this is very simple. Okay, so where is the problem? The problem is, are we ready on all levels to introduce this kind of a system? In west part of the Europe, for example, Germany, Netherlands, France, Switzerland, this is like a completely normal system. They don't debate about that. For them, it's like a normal. Okay. In east part of the Europe, this is very questionable system. So depending of the states or depending of the area, some area has quite excellent system. For example, the Czech Republic. And some area do not have any kind of a system. For example, Croatia. So what is the point of integrated passenger public transport system? The point is that we make public transport easier for our users. So like Marco said, there is some cost to pay. And people always think how much I need to pay. Okay, always in the mind we think about the prices. So when I can pay less and maybe travel a little bit more, for me this can be a solution. So sometimes we need to discuss. And I agree that when you have excellent integrated public passenger system, for example, nowadays, last 5 years, the first city in Europe that won like a prize for best this kind of system, it's Vienna. So in Vienna, it's very easy that you use public transport system. You don't need to know language. It's very simple, you know, and you can travel through the whole Vienna for very cheap amount of the money. Okay, so you pay €1 per day. Imagine the whole system the whole system in city, every type of the modes, you pay only €1 per day. So it's possible. Okay, Vienna make it possible. But of course, why they make it possible? Because they have some measures to make some other parts of the cost very expensive. For example, Professor Edna and Marco said parking. So the parking is in Vienna, it's very expensive. You need to be quite a rich guy to park your car in Vienna. So it always balancing what we want to achieve and how we want to achieve. And always we need to keep in mind that we are doing that for the people. Because when the people are not satisfied with this kind of the system, they will not use the system. So we always need to have a system that has reasonable satisfaction for the users, that they will use in everyday situation this kind of the system.
Thank you. May I ask, Professor, first, also for the people with reduced mobility, how it looks to use this integrated transport? Because Borna mentioned Vienna, and you come from Vienna. So just to give the comment about that, and in general, especially maybe with these electric cars, and so, which is not so, you cannot hear it if you are right, but if you have some problems, there is difficult to hear. Maybe from this aspect to say about these things. Thank you.
First of all, in general, yes, Vienna has a good public transport system, but it depends always on the relation. When it's I have the same problem when I go from my home to the city center, I would never have the idea to take a car because it's much faster to take the underground. It's cheaper, also because of the parking, and I would probably not find a parking space in the city center. But for instance, if when I was a student, when I had to go from my former home with my parents to the university, it was 7 minutes about by car, and at least 45 minutes by public transport. So I was very happy because I have a vision impairment, so I cannot drive on my own, but I was very happy when somebody drove me for this 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Coming back to the point, of course, it was a political decision to have this €365 ticket. I still wondering with all the inflation how long they will maintain this price. Yeah. And the second thing they made, which was really almost a miracle, is this Klima ticket for all the entire area of Austria. So you have €1 for your province or your Bundesland. Yeah? You have €2 for your own province and the surrounding provinces, and €3 a day for the entire area of Austria. And that's of course very cheap, but it has some other effects that people use public transport even if they wouldn't do it when it was costly. So they just decide on a Saturday, oh, it would be fine, let's go to Salzburg for a coffee. Yeah, this happens. And of course the price has no effect on the usage. So you could have cheaper tickets in peak hours, in off-peak hours than in peak hours. But this is gone, of course, and mostly gone. Yeah, and so we have crowded trains sometimes, and some people have to leave the train in some situations. That is another problem, because again, that's a question, of course, of capacity as well. And coming back to persons with reduced mobility, many people with reduced mobility are forced to use public transport, so they really rely on an accessible system. And Vienna has done, let's say, quite a good job. Yeah, together with the people of disability, the DPOs, disabled people organizations. There is an integrated planning group at the Austrian Disability Council, with representatives of all different kinds of disabilities, starting from the sensual disabilities, vision impaired people, blind people, hard of hearing people, deaf people, going on to people with mental disabilities, physical disabilities, psychological disabilities, and so on. And so this group is there to do some counseling, of course, or if it is consulted in early stages of plannings, then it's a very good idea. For instance, Vienna Airport, that is always my benchmark example, because they opened a new terminal in 2013, and then they saw that it didn't work for most of the people because it was not accessible. Like they had a guiding system which was designed in a philosophical way, so that it's best integrated into the surroundings, so you could not see where an element of the guiding system was, yeah, because this was white and light gray, yeah, and so you could not see it, and this had to be completely changed. Then they took us for serious. They saw that the expertise which was given by the representatives of these people, who also have of course sometimes a professional background in the field, they're technicians, they're architects, and so forth, and so they found out that asking the people about their opinion is a good thing, because of course they're not forced to do what they are saying, but if they do, in most cases they end up with a better result. And so what has to be understood, and maybe this is also important in this room, or for this room, if a transport infrastructure, transport service, or whatever is better accessible for somebody with a so-called reduced mobility, it is better accessible for everyone. And then this is also a step in the right direction of what we want to achieve, to get people to use public transport services.
Thank you. Marko, do you have any comments about this integrated system, transport system? Yes, please.
Always. Yeah. When we think about integrated transport, we think about, this trucks, trains, buses, planes. These are all integrated. But the most common integrated transport is actually walking and public transport. That's also integrated transport, or cycling and public transport. When I speak to the people here in Zagreb, in the city, they always say, "Oh, we need to have more cycling," and then they build a cycling lane which are 5, 7, 8 kilometers. They have plans to do this 25 kilometers cycle tracks, and they say it's in Amsterdam. No, guys, in Amsterdam, people have one bike cycling from home to the station, then they take a tram or train, metro, whatever, come to the city, have another bike there parked that they take for the last mile to get to their destination. And this is also integrated transport. And this is what we don't think about all the time, because integration is usually freight, less let's say public transport. Car, for me, it's a part of the solution, especially in rural areas. In rural areas, it is very hard, if not impossible, to organize a good public service of transport, because you have very wide population spread on a wide area. It's very hard to have a frequency of public transport and your bus is full. So it is not a bad thing to have a car or any other modes of transport that actually brings those people to a hub, and then from this hub take them. We have cities here around Zagreb. You've probably flown in from our airport. Everybody, I think 95% of people to our airport comes by car. The railway track is 500 meters away. If you measure on Google, you will see it's 500 meters away. But when we were building the airport, we didn't connect it. There is a city, the second largest city in Zagreb, called Velika Gorica. people are taken by bus parallel to the tracks, to the railway tracks, to the main station of the railway by bus. And when you think of that, something is wrong. And just the concept, the idea is that the road is more flexible is a problem. But yeah, we just have to think about it strategically. One of my thought that I wanted to share is, what is the problem? The problem, I think, is probably the politics, because when you build a road, and what Borna showed, you can do it in 4 years. You can plan it, secure financing, and build it in 4 years, which will make you, let's say, win the next elections. To change the transport policy, to change the way of thinking, it takes decades, probably a change of generation. And that's, I think, the biggest problem why we do. So in some country, it has to come to the point where it breaks down. So then people would change the mode. I always think about, how in Zagreb we try to introduce is the first week of September, we have this mobility week, days without the cars. And then I think about the 1st of November, when in Croatia, in most of the Europe, it's a holiday where we remember our deceased, All Saints Day. In Croatia, traditionally, we go to the cemeteries on that day. And that's the day where most people in Zagreb use public transport. Why? Because it's organized in a way that it's convenient. It's more convenient to get to the graveyards with the public transport than it is with the car. And that's basically a mobility day in Croatia, not in September, if you think about it.
Thank you. But Adam, we have a mobility day in Hungary.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, we have been, unfortunately, it's not the same days to go to the cemetery. But what I would like to draw your attention is that in the early 70s, in University of Vienna, Professor Knoflauer made a very interesting research. If some of you might know it, it's about travel time budget. He investigated a lot of countries all over the world with different societies, different economical backgrounds, and it's turned out, based on this investigation, that independently from the economies or the available technologies, people are spending 1.5 hours of traveling. So, and after that, a lot of researchers, decades later, repeated these research, and it's turned out that it's quasi constant in the last 5 or 6 decades. What does it mean for us, for traffic engineers and transport planners? I would say that it is something like that people are tending to traveling this 1.5 hours because they would like to reach some services, some goods that is not available at their own area. For example, working places, shopping, having leisure activities, or other things that is not available. And as in the last 6 decades, the technology has rapidly developed. We give people opportunity to go further in this 1.5 hours. So when we are speaking about, if you consider that nowadays we can have planes, very fast train services, that is increasing this area of activities to be reached. And this means that people are tending to have larger distances to traveling. Meanwhile, this so-called travel time budget is quasi constant. And what here is also very interesting, this integrated passenger transport is also playing an important role, because that means that these transport modes are connected with each other. And it is nowadays quite obvious that some people are traveling 100 and 150 kilometers away from, for example, from their home to their workplaces, and using 3 or 4 different type of transport modes. And it's quite amazing, I believe. So there are solutions where the integrated passenger transport are working. And as you asked what is happening in Hungary, unfortunately, it's not a good example, I must tell you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, and I will ask you something regarding that question, but maybe about this integrated.
Yes, just.
But I don't know how it's in the tourist destination when there is no possibility to make it, and the stakeholders and the cooperation with them to realize
Yes,
Can you say
yes.
something about that, please?
I think that integrated transport is also very important for tourism destination, and especially what Marco said, walk, then take a public transport, then walk or cycle or something like that. So park and walk, cycle and go on. It is very important. There is a small difference between people generally in cities using integrated transport and tourists when they come to tourism destination. Of course, price is always important, but people, when as tourists come to a destination, they have time. They have a little more time. They do not hurry so much. They do not go to work and so on. For them, it is important to be able to visit all the attractions and to use all the services, all the facilities, to have good connections between attractive points, accommodation points, resorts, hotels, and so on and so on. This is very important because this means that there is a possibility from the point of view of a local, local government, local community connected with traffic enterprises to organize integrated transport in such a way to manage these traffic flows. So by creating integrated routes of transport, so to say, for tourists, in such a way to connect, as I mentioned earlier, attractive points, accommodation points, restaurants, city centers, pedestrian zones, and so on and so on. You can, to some extent, stimulate tourists to use certain routes. So at the end, maybe if we speak about cities, towns, and so on as tourism destinations, you can, so to say, leave some routes from local inhabitants who go to work, to school, faculties, and so on, and canalize or stimulate tourists to use some other routes. So at the end, the existing infrastructure can be used in a more efficient way. So it is not mobility concept is not always about money. Yes, it is about money. Without money, we can't, I don't know, arrange parking facilities for cycling, for small motor wheels. We can't arrange pedestrian zones. Of course, they have to be prepared if walking is to be nice for people and so on. But we can done a lot just using some organizational tools. So to point once more what was said earlier, we have to develop traffic for the future. I must say, in Croatia, we have a big problem with our tourists because the majority of them, as I mentioned earlier, they come by car. As we all are linked to our cars so dearly, we leave all our tourists, as they have arrived by car, they move around our destinations, but by their own cars. And we have, as Borna showed earlier on that strip, we have not happy, satisfied people who use flexibility, individuality, I don't know, social status or something like that with their cars. But we have people staying in their cars, in streets for half an hour, 1 hour at, I don't know, maybe 35 or 40 degrees of Celsius during summer season. And of course, at the end, when we make research of their satisfaction in, while they stay in our destinations, when looking, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 elements, they are very, very, very unsatisfied with traffic in our tourism destinations. They, of course, as I mentioned earlier, they say we do not have enough parking slots. Of course, it is not possible to have such huge parking capacities. They notice noise and so on. And they are, of course, not extremely unsatisfied with the public transport organization in our destinations. And just to finish and not to speak too much, we have made a research several years ago in Rijeka. We have several hotels, of course, lack of parking capacities, as I mentioned many times earlier. We asked tourists how important is for them while they stay at the hotel to have a parking place for their car. Of course, it is important for them, but what was very important, they say that they think it is not a big problem if they have the information earlier. So if they have the information earlier that there is no parking capacity at that hotel, we have such a hotel in the very center of Rijeka, where I live. So if they are informed earlier, furthermore, if they are given an information about public parking places, garages, parking fees, and so on, they think that it is a very good solution for them. So once more, just to finish, it is I think that speaking from our point of view of in Croatia, we have a problem with ourselves. How will we develop mobility concepts in our towns, destinations, and so on? I think that there is a future for paradigm which we mentioned earlier. So,
okay, thank you, Anna. Well, now I think that we are near the time when we can give the talk to or the questions to the audience. But before that, I will just want to ask one question for each of you, because the conference named is E-square mobility. E-square is the two words. E first, energy, that was the sessions before, and the E second is electronics, or better to say control. And now the question is regarding from the traffic engineers organizing, planning the traffic, how you comment the new technology of the electric vehicles and the autonomous driving. Shortly, what is your view of these technologies? From the point of view, as I said, of the planners, of the organizers of the traffic, in short.
Okay, thank you. Quite difficult question. But okay, I think that by my personal opinion, the energy is the most important facts in transport today. So which kind of energy we will use and which sources we will use for produce this energy that we need for the transport. So I think this is a very important question. I don't have like straight answer for that. It's depending what we want to do. So maybe nowadays, the session before was about hydrogen. So there was very good tests with trains with hydrogen that are very feasible, very good, very cheap. So maybe depending what we want to achieve in some sectors, we can use different source of energy as we are doing today.
regarding the energy sources, I completely agree with Borna. For the aspect of autonomous driving, I have a vision that in the future, one of these backbones of the system will be the availability of autonomous driving. I think that there could be some fleet operators, different fleet operators, offering different services, and you can be a member of this fleet and that fleet. I think the public transport service providers will always also be one of those operators of fleets, and then you can order the car or the vehicle you need at a specific situation. If you have to transport something, then a car where you can have space for luggage, for instance, and there can be smaller cars and bigger cars if you are a group or so. And the car itself knows when it has to go to the service, when it needs more energy, and so on. And what would this mean? That the private car ownership would decline? So there would be no, if those cars. I was when there was a time when we had no car, and I tried out to be in car sharing, and the problem was that when I needed one, no car was available nearby, and so we stopped that, and we thought that it would be good to have an own car again. That's right, it's mostly in the garage, but when we need it, it's there. And so I think if there is a reliable system and there is a guaranteed availability of the car, for instance, when you need it, then we can have such systems, and much space in the cities, which is now dedicated for the parking lots, will be free then and can be used in a different way. For instance, for cycling lines, or for pedestrian lines, or for whatever, planting trees. Yeah, and I think this is possible. And would like to say one word. Because Professor Knoflacher was mentioned, and the time budget, travel time budget. He for I think 1 year ago or so, he published another study which is very interesting and could be a source of financing for public transport, because he said that when we build a new line of underground or rail or whatever, the costs are public, have to be provided by the general public. But so to say, the benefits are always private, because the premises, for the ground, the price for the ground, it's increasing hugely, and he said if there was a tax, a special tax, which you don't have to pay as long as you own this house or this place, but at the moment you sell it and you realize this benefit, you have to give something back to the public. I think this could be a considerable solution. Thank you.
Only in 2 words, because we are out of time a little bit. So
It was too long, sorry.
Only one sentence from the tourism point of view. I think that here in Croatia, we have always more and more tourists coming by electric cars, and still not enough facilities to charge those cars, especially superchargers. So we must go on with that.
Very shortly, that the energy point of view regarding to your question, it's depend on what was the source of the electricity. So if we consider that in Norway, everything, every electricity is produced by renewable energy sources. Meanwhile, for example, in Hungary or in Poland, there is a lot of coal power plants still. So that means that the electric car can still have significant environmental pollution or contribution. Regarding to autonomous vehicles, based on our estimations and simulations, the fully autonomous and connective road vehicles could significantly increase the capacity of road infrastructure. Meanwhile, the transient, so until we reach the 100% of penetration of this technology, could be a huge problem when the human drivers and the autonomous vehicles are going to be both in the system. It could be a controversial situation, could increase the environmental pollution, and also could decrease the capacity of the road infrastructure. Unfortunately, I have to say it. Thank you.
Just few words. I know that you can
Just few
speak
words.
up.
Yeah, I would like to speak a lot, but so 2 points. First point regarding the energy. I think the solution is probably diversification. There will be different sources and different ways of powering our mobility. But on the other hand, from the transport perspective, mobility as a service. In one generation, my grandmother, she needed to plant the seeds, to have the tomatoes, to buy the chickens, to feed them, to have the eggs. Our kids don't care about it. They go to the store, they buy it. We also do it in one generation. In next generation, they won't care whether the car is electric or hydrogen fuel or the option A or B. They just need to have a service from A to B. They don't care how they will get there.
Okay, thank you. Now we are short of time, but no questions regarding the time. The chairman said me sorry. Thank you, all of you, and thank you, audience, for your patience. And I'm closing this session. Thank you.